Okay, Snapchat made this shit look cute, but I just look like I'm trying on some devil horns. Hey guys, I'm Ellie and welcome back to my channel. It is the end of a month, the beginning of a new month, so it is time for me to tell you about all the books that I read last month. I read a total of 12 books in June, which has been the best month that I've had since February. February and June are tied with 12 books, which is pretty darn good. For some quick stats, I read 2 audiobook collections, I read 3 graphic novels, I do believe, I read no middle grade, I ended up reading 2 poetry collections, 2 short story collections, 1 adult, and 1 YA. I participated in Cramathon. I'm hoping to have the vlog that I did of Cramathon in with my what happened in June vlog. I did do 1 buddy read as well, and I did a total of 1,989 pages. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into this wrap up because we know I like to ramble, especially because I found my most hated book of the year, so you guys gonna get an earful on that. As always, I'm gonna have timestamps down below to all of the different categories so you can skip to see whatever it is that you want to see. Let's go ahead and get into this video wrap up thingy. Yeah. Keep wanting to go question number 1. It's not Tag Tuesday, Ellie. Calm yourself. So as always, I'm going to start with the audiobooks, and I'm starting with my least favorite audiobook. This has become my least favorite book of the year. Unpopular opinion time. It was History Is All You Left Me. I had originally picked this up for Cramathon. The audiobook, I had bought the audiobook relatively cheap on Audible. And I thought, why the heck not? I'll listen to it. Listened to so much of this to the point where I was just like, I really wanted to DNF it, but I listened to so much, I was like, I might as well just finish it. I was doing it for a readathon anyway, so whatever. I'll just get it done. It won't take me that long to listen to it on 2 times speed. I should have just DNF'd it. What a waste of time. This is about a boy whose ex-boyfriend dies. There's chapters that talk about the present time where he's going to the funeral, he is grieving, he's trying to get over them. He was still very much in love with his ex-boyfriend. His ex-boyfriend had moved away and actually had a new boyfriend, and this is about him coming into contact with the new boyfriend as well, and you get glimpses into how their relationship was when they were still together. Let me tell you, this was the most boring shit I've ever read. It was so boring. It's very uneventful. It's just kind of day-to-day things. The main character is awful. The main character is a shit person, and I understand that he is grieving, but he's grieving over his ex, and you find out that he did some things that were kind of a little iffy, does some more things, and basically instead of taking responsibility for the awful things that he is doing, he blames everyone else around him and just doesn't want to take responsibility at all. He thinks everything is everyone else's fault. He just doesn't want to accept any of it, and he's a real asshole about it. He is a total dick. I could not stand our main character. Besides being an asshole, he has really no other personality besides that. His ex-boyfriend had all the personality, and the new boyfriend has just as much personality as him, and he even says it's like the copy of himself. So you got bland and blander going on here, and there's just some really not so great things happening in this book. It was literally just such a boring plot line. Nothing is accomplished. I feel like even though he goes through this grieving state, he never comes out of it, never takes responsibility for his shit. Just I wish I would have just DNF'd this just so I didn't have to even deal with this. I was so annoyed by the end. I just hated them so much. I just hated the main character. I hated the storyline. Just, it's not great. Yeah, I ended up giving this 1 star. This is, as Amber has said, my carry-on of 2018. There we go. The other audiobook I listened to was Sleeping Giants, and what a fantastic audiobook. If you're going to listen to any audiobook, it needs to be this one. It has a full cast, and there's one part, I'm going to tell you a story, there's one part where the one character screams bloody murder for her life. Was not expecting it. It comes out of basically nowhere. I was running on the treadmill as I'm listening to this. It's 6:30 in the morning. I almost died on the treadmill because I wasn't expecting to scream. Scared the living hell out of me. I ripped out my headphones. I tripped on the treadmill. I'm just like flailing about. I had to pull the emergency thing, and there's just some old dude beside me, and he's like, "You okay, hon?" Like, no, just shit myself over here. No big deal. Don't worry about me. Just excuse me. So I embarrass myself at the gym all the time. What's new? If you don't know, this has received a decent amount of hype recently. This is a series. I do believe it is a trilogy. The first one, Sleeping Giants, follows how this is about these metal pieces are found all over the earth, and basically they are body parts, these big metal body parts. They have decided that they couldn't have been made by humans, that by the time they would have been made, like, they didn't have the right technology, and the material that they're made out of, there's not even an abundant enough amount on earth to even make it. And so it kind of has a little bit of that, oh, like aliens who done did it kind of deal, but it definitely focuses more on putting the body together and getting it to work. It is about this group. Some of them are scientists, some of them are from the army, and it's told through, I'm assuming, like interviews and case files. I listened to it and you can hear like how the interviews go, so that was really neat. It was just interesting to see how the body came together and what it was used for and what was happening. I will say though, I think I may have hyped this book up a little bit too much for myself, because I did feel pretty let down upon finishing it. I didn't think it was super, I guess, eventful, especially when it came to the actual giant. It focuses more on the relationships that are going on within this group of like researchers and the different complications that they have with the giant rather than just the giant itself. It also gets a little more political heavy as it goes on, and I definitely didn't think it was just as action-packed as I feel like a lot of people have said it was going to be. And the ending just felt so anticlimactic. I don't know, like, it didn't even feel like a real cliffhanger. Like, I just don't really feel a need to continue on. Like, I was pretty content with the story, and I don't know, I think the audiobook is fantastic, and it was generally a really good story. I just felt like it just wasn't as great as the hype has said it was, and the characters were a little, my friend and I were talking about this, and he said that they were kind of, they're just really cliche kind of characters, so don't expect too much from them. I did give this 4 out of 5 stars and did really enjoy it, besides crappy myself while listening to it. Moving on to the graphic novels, I believe I read 3 graphic novels, one of which was Love is Love. I also read this for Cramathon. This is a graphic novel anthology that is put together. It is all kinds of like 1- and 2-page spreads that have stories and different artwork and stuff, and it was for the Pulse shooting that happened in 2016, and I actually ended up reading this on like the anniversary date. This was to benefit the victims of Pulse shooting and the families, and get just, you know, more people aware that it had happened. It was a shooting that happened in a gay nightclub. So this is all about the LGBTQ community, and overall, I thought it was pretty well done. The only problem I had was that it got very repetitive. It was so repetitive and just so long, and it felt like it was like the same kind of things being told over and over and over again, and I wish that we could have seen more like outsider stories or just stories about the LGBTQ community in general, instead of just focusing on that one thing that happened. But overall, I ended up skimming the last half of it because it was all just the same information, and at that point I was just looking at the artwork. If it hadn't been so long, I probably would have rated it higher, but I ended up rating this a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Ladycastle, and this is a graphic novel about all the men from this kingdom disappear. They go out on a quest, they all die, and they don't come back. and it's up to all the women to take over, and it follows the princess who has been locked away and her younger sister who wants to be a knight, and it follows the woman that they elect as their new king, and instead of calling it King Castle, they call it Ladycastle. So, because the men went and screwed everything up, their castle is now cursed by all these bad things. Each comic that is in this volume is about one of the curses that is coming at them and how they solve it, and it tends to be solved not by violence but by some other means, whether it's like outsmarting or whether it's sharing or just being kind, compliments and stuff like that. So kind of lame in my opinion. Like, it was all about just being morally correct. Overall, they were all just kind of bland though. Didn't really care for them. It was kind of annoying. It got really repetitive. It tried really hard to be quirky and funny, and it just fell flat. It just wasn't all that exciting. I just didn't care. So I ended up giving this 2 out of 5 stars. And then the last graphic novel that I read was my favorite, and it was Motor Crush Volume 2. Motor Crush has become like my favorite graphic novel series. I freaking love it. It takes place in this futuristic world, and it follows our main character. She is a street bike racer, like a professional street bike racer, but she's also a secret street bike racer, and she races for Crush. Crush is this substance that you can put into your bike, and it makes it go crazy, zoom, zoom fast, okay? It's illegal though, but she needs it because for some reason, she needs it to survive. Like, she has to drink it. It has been known to make people like explode if it gets anywhere in them, but she needs it to survive, and she doesn't know why. Part of this is her doing her racing, which is fun and exciting, and I love every second of it. And there's like biker gangs. Oh my goodness, I live for it. The artwork is amazing. I love the characters. Our main character is black, and she is also a lesbian, and oh god, I love it. On top of that, you're trying to figure out where this crush is coming from, and also why she needs it to survive, and what the hickety heck is going on. The first one left off on a cliffhanger, so I was super excited to get to this one. Did not let me down. You get a little bit of backstory, you get a lot more violence, you get a lot more friendship, you get some relationship stuff. Like, it was just so exciting, and I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Would highly recommend this series. Moving on to the poetry collections, I read 2, one of which was, I read Honeybee. This is a collection of poems about heartbreak. So it was a little relevant to my life, and I read this also for Cramathon, but this was a relatively quick read. I felt like I pretty well resonated with it. For the most part, I thought that they were fairly original type poems, whereas usually I tend to be a little annoyed with modern poetry because it's all so repetitive and regurgitated and none of it seems original. But I did pretty much like this one, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The other one I read was Sea of Strangers. This is also a collection of poetry. This one focused more on like being in love with someone and then falling out of love with someone and then being there with them again. And it was kind of long, did get a little bit repetitive. Some of these were quite longer poems, and I read this online, and the formatting of it online was really strange. It was really hard to follow. For the most part, I thought there was some really good poems in there, and I did write some down that I really enjoyed, which like never happens. I also gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. Moving on to the short story collections, I read Will You Please Be Quiet Please, and I buddy read this with Richard Reeds, who is back on the YouTube, and I'm so excited. Make sure you go check him out. I love buddy reading things with Richard, and he had recommended this. He knows I like short stories. This one really deals with kind of middle lower class, the struggles that they see. There are some that deal with the family dynamic of being in a lower class and the things that it does to like marriages, with infidelity, with worrying about infidelity. It deals with how kids act differently, how neighborhoods are, like the dynamic in neighborhoods, how things are at work. Like, this just really focused on those things, and I felt like I could connect with those because I grew up in lower middle class. and I saw a lot of these things from my own family growing up, and I thought that really resonated well. There were some stories that I just didn't know what the heck they meant, and I felt more confused than anything. There's like one about fishing and masturbation throughout the whole thing. Some of them I didn't really understand that much, but I did think that these did a really good job at capturing just the essence of life and the struggles. I did enjoy this for the most part, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And then the other one I read was All the Names They Use for God. This is my favorite short story collection to date. This had stories that had a slight element of fantastical things in it. It was never anything over the top. It was just something slight enough that just made the story just so much better, or just tied it in somehow. I did rate each story individually on Goodreads if you guys are interested, but this was just fantastic. I was just captivated by every single story. It had some of my favorite stories that I've read so far, just so many that dealt with like internal struggles, and just there was one in this that was just absolutely amazing. It was The Names They Use for God was the story, and it is about these girls that are taken young, and they are taken with a whole group of girls, and they are forced into marriages, and they're basically like sex slaves. But these girls learn to manipulate minds, and can manipulate the minds of their husbands, and like make their husbands fear them and stuff. And it is about them like finally going back home in the way that their parents expect them to be, and things like that. And it was just a fantastic story, and I think about it all the time, honestly. Can you not, sir? I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Loved it. I really want to get a copy for myself. Moving on to adult. I actually read 2 adult. I lied earlier. I read The Wedding Date, and I actually think that I may have actually read this in May, but I totally forgot to put it anywhere that I read it. Like a fake relationship trope that happens. It is about this guy and this girl that meet in an elevator, and the guy really needs a wedding date, and he kind of asks her on a whim, and she's like, yeah, I guess okay. So they fake this, like they've been dating for all this time, and like they're this happy couple, and then they end up hanging out more, and the next thing they know, they are fake dating even longer than they thought they would. This is kind of a less steamy romance in that it has the things that are happening, but it doesn't go into great detail into like the steaminess. So it was really enjoyable. I did find it got a little repetitive near the end, because it was just them doing the same things over and over again and worrying about the same things over and over again. And I did get a little frustrated, because you know how these things go. You're like, you guys obviously like each other, what are you doing? And they just keep like avoiding talking to each other about it, and it got a little frustrating. But overall, I thought it was really cute. I thought it was a really healthy relationship. It is a interracial relationship as well, and I thought it was lots of fun. It is also long distance, and I don't know, I just thought it was cute. I ended up reading it in like one day, because I just flew through it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then the other one I read was Beneath the Sugar Sky, and this is part of the Wayward Children series. This takes place after the events that happened in Every Heart a Dory. It's about these kids that have returned from their doors. Some people have doors that open up to them, and they go in and they find this world that they just fit so perfectly in, and sometimes they accidentally fall back into Earth. And the wayward home is where they go when they can't adjust to being back at Earth and they just want to go back to their door. There is a murder mystery that takes place in the first one, and this follows the events of that, and this follows one of the girls that has been murdered. Her daughter shows up and is like, we gotta stop my mom from being murdered because I want to live. And she's disappearing, so she becomes friends with some of the people from this house, and they travel through some of the worlds, and they ended up going to one of the like worlds that are made of like cotton candy and nonsense and stuff. Those are some of the different worlds. It was really exciting to see some of the worlds and to hear about some of the other characters and to learn some of the different aspects of those doors, and to know that like doors do open and that you can travel through them. So it was really interesting to see that. I think this was my favorite one so far, and I think it's mostly because it read like a middle grade. It's a group of friends going on an adventure to save someone. It was lots of fun and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I flew through it. It was so good. And then the last thing that I have to talk to you guys about is the one YA that I read, and it was Airports, Exes, and Other Things That I'm Over. I was really excited about this. Just because I thought it was going to be a lot of fun. It is a YA romance. It is about this girl that her and her boyfriend at the time, I cannot say it, kissing another girl at a party, and they are supposed to go to Florida together for spring break. So she like makes up this plan. She goes there and she meets some other guy while she's there, and she's avoiding him. That just takes place in the first 10 pages, and I thought that was the overall synopsis of it. I don't even know why Florida is mentioned in this book, because it's literally like 5 pages and she does absolutely nothing there but meet this other guy. The rest of the book is about her being trapped in an airport trying to get home with her ex-boyfriend and this new guy. And basically everything that can go wrong to her at the airport does. And some of it just seems way too coincidental and just way too weird, and just like all the things that were happening just weren't really all that exciting, I guess, to me. And I thought this was going to be really cute. It is a really short book, but overall I think it just ended up disappointing me. There is this weird music side plot like thing where she wants to be like a musician. Don't really know what it has to do with anything besides it's the reason that she needs to get home so quickly. Other than that, doesn't really do much for the storyline. None of them have personalities except for really basic, like the one guy is a total bro, and they like, it's just hammered into you that he is a bro, and then the other one is supposed to just be like the geeky nice guy, but he doesn't have much of a personality. 10 words that he says besides like, will you please talk to me, will you please talk to me, and he just didn't respect her boundaries whatsoever when it came to like her just needing space. He just did not respect that at all, so that really annoyed me. And the ending really annoyed me, especially because they are high school students. Like, if someone does those things to you, like, you feel free to move on. Yell at them when they don't give you boundaries. Like, I just was so frustrated by the end of this. The characters fell flat, the storyline fell flat. I just didn't like the way it ended. I didn't really like some of the things that were happening. And I don't even know why the other guy was introduced, honestly. There's another guy that they meet along the way. Don't really know the point of him whatsoever. There's a third guy. I don't. I ended up giving this 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was just kind of an overall disappointment. So, I'm tired. I was a lot talking. Ooh. That was all the books that I read in June, and let me know if you guys read any of these or what your favorite read or most disappointing read was in June. Let me know. Did you have an unpopular opinion like me? If you guys have liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to see future wrap-ups from me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you the next time. Bye.